It's Rex on the road with our Sonoma County Wine of the Week, and we are visiting with Kevin today. Kevin, where are we?
We are at Montagne Russe in Healdsburg, right off the square at Block's Landing.
That sounds like a roller coaster to me in French.
Or in some language for sure.
Okay, I can barely speak English, so it's a toughie.
We'll practice
Okay, that's great. And now tell us where your tasting room is.
So we are about a third of a mile off the square. You take the first roundabout down West Side Road,
right,
and right before you hit Baca Winery, you take a right into our driveway. So we're right there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful setting. I felt like we maybe got into Spain. That's the way it looks. It has a very Spanish architecture.
Yeah.
As you walk in, very beautiful.
Well, hacienda chic is what I call it.
Okay, well that's very nice. Now I understand your winemaking history kind of started with some stolen grapes in a garage. That sounds like a CIA undercover.
I don't use the word steal, theft. I stay away from those strong words.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, we borrowed.
You borrowed some.
I'll be returning them any moment now.
Okay.
I used to live in St. Helena. I used to live in St. Helena. I grabbed some grapes behind the St. Helena Library one day, and then I was off and running.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how did that go? You got these grapes that were not paid for, but you would grab them. How did that work out?
Karma played a hand in this. It was not good. The wine was terrible. And they ripped the grapes out literally the next year because all the vines were diseased. So egg on my face. So
Kevin,
and eggs are expensive nowadays too.
You started a whole grape problem.
Yes. So basically, a couple years later, I got a few friends together. We all bought some grapes from a well-known vineyard down in Carneros. Made some wine in my garage in St. Helena, and the rest is history.
All right, and now you're in Healdsburg, right?
Now I'm in Healdsburg. Most of our grapes come from out of the Petaluma Gap. A little south of here, a little windier, a little cooler, but we do some stuff even further north of here. So this is a good home base.
Good central location.
Absolutely.
And so you had the Napa experience, the Sonoma. Which do you prefer, Napa or Sonoma?
Well, I work my day jobs in Napa, so I'm in Napa like every day practically. Okay. I do like Napa. I lived in Napa for a decade. I like the spirit and the can-do attitude of Sonoma a smidge more. Sure. Traditional farmers out here, good people, salt of the earth. I don't think you can get any better than Sonoma.
The thing I like about Sonoma is I grew up in Northern California, farm country, a place called Chico. And so there was a lot of farming, a lot of agriculture. I like in Sonoma County that the farming is still kind of forefront.
Sure.
Where in other places the farming is kind of hid, and there's this luxury end where I feel here you kind of get the whole story of the grapes are farmed before they get in the bottle.
Yep.
Where some other places maybe don't tell that whole complete story.
We only work with growers and farmers who farm or live on their own land. It's a rule for us.
Oh, wow.
We don't do any of these corporate conglomerates that pay someone else to farm it. We only work with the people themselves.
So no conglomerates for you?
None.
Well, I mean, that's really good because I think you need to support the local farmers, the folks that are still doing it.
Especially now, given what's going on out there. All the small guys need all the help we can get.
Yeah, exactly. So that's great. Tell us about the wines that you make.
Yeah, so again, let's go back to the Petaluma Gap. What we're drinking right now is the Roberts Road Pinot Noir 2021, farmed by the San Giacomo family. Farmers going back almost 100 years. I think they were in apples before they were in grapes.
Sure.
But they, again, when we talk about salt of the earth people who are going to put their own name on my bottle, Roberts Road's on the bottle, epic farmers, epic people. So you know what, they know what it's like to run a small business, so they're perfect people to partner with.
Right. And two of the varietals that you make, from what I've been reading and studying, is Syrah and Pinot. Yep. And those are two of my favorites. You don't hear Syrah mentioned a lot in Sonoma County, so I was kind of surprised to hear that.
Yeah, so when I grew up, I didn't grow up making wine. I was that would be illegal, of course, which would go with the motif. But when I fell in love with wine, I fell in love with Syrah. So what I was making in my garage all those years was Syrah, Russian River, Carneros, Sonoma. So I fell in love with Syrah. Now obviously you hear all the jokes out there. It's easier to get rid of a case of Syrah than it is some sort of hard to get rid of transmitted something or other. But it's one of my favorite grapes. I think it's a very versatile grape. I do at least 2 or 3 Syrahs a year.
Oh, wow.
And I will never, in fact, we just started a second label called Poet Laval, and it is all Rhone varietals and primarily Syrah. And this one's actually a Syrah from the Petaluma Gap from Keller Estates Vineyard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And so do you feel by doing Syrah here, because that's, that's kind of something that seems to get a little ignored over here in Sonoma County?
Well, if anyone's used to being ignored, it would be this guy right here. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Well,
hey, being on the chess team in high school did not get me a date to the prom. So.
I went into that room and I left.
Yeah.
I went into that room. I was a soccer player.
I went into that room and I didn't leave was the problem. I thought they were giving away a new car or something, so I stayed. But
nothing wrong with chess, though.
I wasn't good at that either.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't have a long stint.
Okay.
I rode the bench in baseball and in chess.
Okay.
But Syrah, it's such a versatile, it's food friendly.
Right.
You can do it in so many different styles, rich, jammy, light and floral. I'm a little bit more of the light and floral guy, but I just think some of the best wines in the world are Syrahs, and I think it's gotten a bad reputation, and I'm bringing it back, and if I'm going streaking in the quad, there's no one behind me, I'm completely okay with that as well.
Okay.
If I'm the only guy in, I'm the only guy in.
Well, I always feel Syrah is so close to Zinfandel. If you like Zinfandel, you might like Syrah.
You might.
I mean, that they're close to me in texture and taste and kind of what you're getting.
Definitely can be on that riper side, but again, I do that floral mountainside, 13.8 to 14.2, really pretty, beautiful Syrah. So.
Now, something we want to talk about here in Sonoma County, you get this cool climate where you get the fog in the morning.
Yep.
What, as a winemaker, does that do to the grapes?
Well, I think it's more than nighttime temperatures. You get this diurnal thing that people talk about. So I grew up on the East Coast. When it was 100 degrees at noon, it was 98 degrees at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
That's not the way wine country is. And all the great wine regions are more, it could be 100 degrees during the day, but at night it's 52 degrees. So that's why everyone buys those I Heart SF sweatshirts when they visit San Francisco, because no one's prepared for how cold it is in the summer. And that fog and that cool air at night is what allows the maturation of the grapes that keep the acid, to keep the floralness, to keep the prettiness.
Right. Is that all about the moisture kind of locking that in?
It's more the cool temperatures. I mean, moisture can play a part, but ideally, especially with Pinot Noir, you don't want moisture. Those grapes are so packed together, you want to keep them as moisture-free as possible.
Okay.
But that's why, especially in the Petaluma Gap, it's windy. So if the fog does get the grapes wet, it blow dries it out by noon. Yep, and you're done.
The wind does its thing, drying out, keeping it dry. And, because I think that's always a big question is the fog is a good thing, but too much of a good thing can be a bad thing.
Yeah, I have one vineyard where the fog doesn't blow off till noon or 1 o'clock. I almost said noon o'clock, but noon or 1 o'clock.
Right.
And that vineyard doesn't get harvested until late October each year. Just because those cold temperatures, epic vineyard, but very stressful.
And what kind of harvest was it this year?
We had a hot year this year. It seems like every year is a different thing. 23 was a super cold year. Right. This year was warm. So my Syrahs are going to be a bit more like your Zinfandel. Okay. A little less like my Pinot. So, very warm year.
And each year is different, right? I mean, 1 year's a wet year, 1 year's a colder year,
begrudgingly so.
And you kind of got to judge that. And what are you going to do to help?
That's why we call it roller coaster. Because we're not into making a style, we're into making the best wine every single year with the growers off their vineyard. So 1 year can be jammy, the next year can be lean. We're totally okay with that.
And is that a fun part of being a winemaker that, this year the grapes are like this, and so I'm going to have to...
Do you see my hair up here?
I don't see any.
That's right.
Okay.
So you're seeing the absence of hair.
That's why.
So is it fun? Yes, it's fun. But I got to tell you, with global warming and the fires and all these things, it has become, the first 10 years I lived in wine country, super predictable. Every year after that, it's been something different every single year.
Well, I mean, like the last 5 years, it's a fire. It's
rain. It's cold. It's hot.
Right,
It's
and it's
crazy.
never the same, right? It's never the same thing. And so,
Never the same.
so that becomes a tricky process in the sense of what do I need to do? Well, that's going to be fine this year. I just got to baby it a little bit.
Yes, all right. It's fine every year. just check your expectations at the door, and you're going to make something good every year. Maybe not what you're expecting, but it'll be good.
Now, what's your favorite wine to make? Do you have a favorite, or all of them are your favorite?
Yeah, so Pinot Noir is probably my favorite to make, just because I've got 2 vineyards. I got Gaps Crown and Roberts Road. They're across the street from one another. They're picked a month apart. They're across the street from one another. They're picked a month apart. Okay, different clones, different barrels. So you end up with something very, very different, even though it's across the street. So that part's fun. But I'll tell you, the wine I love to drink the most is probably Syrah. So what do I like to make? I like to make Syrah. I don't make it as much as I like, but Pinot Noir is probably my superpower.
Now, as a winemaker in Sonoma County, the question I always think is, the expectations are so high for Pinot that, as you step into the Pinot, it's like there's a certain level that you have to reach, right? I mean, expectations are fairly high, or no?
Well, my expectations are always high. So if I was leaving it up to others to set expectations, I'd be in a different business. But I think everyone should always make the best thing that they can make.
Sure.
You leave. I don't worry about what anyone else is doing. I love a ton of other wineries. I love drinking other people's wines. Their wines are all different than my wines, and that's what's great about it. So the expectations high? Yeah, they should be. And if you're not interested in crafting the best thing you can possibly do, you're probably doing the wrong thing. Right.
Well, I mean, I think the thing that's interesting is it's a blending of art and science, right? I mean, there's the art of winemaking, and we can talk about the art, but it's the science, it's the balancing of what you've got in the grapes this year versus maybe what you had the previous year.
Yeah, in fact, I was low on the science the first few years. I was kind of using my force, my chefing skills. And then when I started learning much more about the science and the chemistry and all that sort of stuff, I found out what I was naturally doing was the right way to do it anyway. Hey, I'm glad it reinforced it.
Well, going with your gut sometimes could be a good thing, even in winemaking.
Absolutely. That's pretty good. That doesn't suck.
That is absolutely terrific.
Our tagline is we make solidly above average wines.
Above average.
We keep expectations low and we try to exceed them every time.
Oh, well, I mean, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, my mom taught me well.
Excellent.
Pessimistic East Coast family.
Yeah. Does mom help with the winemaking?
No, mom passed away a few years ago, but she helped drinking with it for sure.
Okay.
That's a story for a different video. Yes.
How can folks visit you, Kevin? Right here. What's the best way to reach out? 2
ways. You can go online to hopefully everyone knows the www part. Russe wines.com. You can go and book a reservation there, or quite frankly, just swing on to Bacchus Landing on West Side Road and just pop on in. We're wide open.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kevin.
Salute.
And you've got some records here. We're going to check out the records. A former DJ in records, I'm in the right place. And wine.
Absolutely.
So you can't go wrong.
Let's go sell you some records.
All right. Cheers.